Hello, my name is Jorge Quiñones. Oh, this brings back memories from my teenage years when I was in a band. It's like you gotta wrap the cable. Don't trip on it. Don't do weird stuff. I'm gonna put this up here so I don't step on it. Well, thank you so much for coming. Thank you for having me. I am here to talk to you about goddess Hekate. Now, I'm going to give a little bit of a disclaimer. I am not going to speak about the white goddess or Shakespeare. There have been 2,000 years worth of misinformation. So my information from goddess Hekate is going to come primarily from this book. It's called the Greek Magical Papyri. If you don't know that much about it, it was discovered in the last century, and it was translated in the last 40, 30 years. This has now become our source for the goddess Hekate. And it coincides with the previous sources, which are the Chaldean oracles and Hesiod's theogony. Now, those three are going to be my main sources of information for goddess Hekate. So I will not speak about Shakespeare. I will not speak about the white goddess. Getting that out of the way, let me tell you a bit about goddess Hekate. To me, goddess Hekate, it is not just as we say, as now we define a god. Today, our definitions of God are more like a cross on the wall with a dude that doesn't move, or went through a lot of bad stuff and has been used as a symbol for subjugation, obliteration of culture. That is not the goddess that I like to conceive as a goddess. If in Greek magical papyri, if you would like the source, it's well, I don't want to bring in the flow. But anyway, there are multiple sources in the Greek magical papyri that equates the goddess Hekate to Selene. Selene is the Greek word for the moon, and so goddess Hekate is the moon, and so it. But then even now we have to kind of like explain what is the moon for us. Today, the moon is just basically a satellite, 300,000 kilometers away from us, lifeless, just there, and we don't really quite know what it does. The Greeks knew what it did, and the ancient Greeks, not today's Greeks. Today's Greeks is more of a Christian type of Greek Orthodox Christian type of culture. And so they don't really quite subscribe so much to the ancient gods. And so thanks to the Greek magical papyri and other translations of many other classical books, now we understand what the goddess Hekate meant for those people. The moon had many aspects. Now we are very much used to our Gregorian solar calendar. Back in those times, the calendar, primarily for people that lived on the field, whose life was dependent upon the harvest, it was the lunar calendar that ruled the world, because it was essential to know the tides of the tides of the rivers, the tides of the oceans. It was also, believe it or not, the moon has a lot to do with how much water certain plants are able to contain, and how much water do they release. During the full moon, they contain more water. During the new moon, they don't have as much water, and so therefore these ancient people that believed in the moon as a type of god, not an inanimate god, but a real moving, living god. It was very essential to understand. And so we can understand the goddess Hekate from multiple perspectives. We can understand it as an archetype. So even if you're an atheist, you can still subscribe to the worship of goddess Hekate, because it's an archetype and it's an object in the sky. It's there. You don't need to believe in it. It's there. So it's like you don't need to think it's like, oh, it's going to save you from your sins. No, it's right there. And this is what it does, and we can scientifically prove it. So even if you're an atheist, it will still apply. And so therefore, the concept of the goddess Hekate, or the goddess Selene in this case, are real, palpable concepts. You don't need to believe in them. They're provable scientifically. And that is why I think that sometimes it angers me when the Christians, the early Christians, believe that the ancient Greek gods were primitive. They were paganos. They were not paganos. They were just oppressed. They were just oppressed. But there was certainly so much wisdom behind the conception of the moon as a goddess. Now, I have two things to show you. If I can find them. Oh, I think they're in this book. Now, I get sometimes into arguments with ladies from the white goddess people. Oh, I forgot to bring the triangle. White goddess people, they think that Artemis and Diana are not the same goddess. This right here, it's a printout from a Roman coin from Emperor Hadrian. Emperor Hadrian also is in the magical papyri. He was a super witchy emperor. He was at one point the most powerful man on earth. And even the most powerful man on earth worship Artemis and worship Hekate and perform the magic of Artemis and perform the magic of Hekate. And so even though there was already Christianity at this point, but Hadrian decided to be a pagan and decided to worship this goddess as opposed to worship Christ. I don't know if you want to pass this around. This is, I'll show it to the camera. This is a coin from Ephesus. If there's anything Ephesus is known for, is the temple of Artemis. And if you can see in this coin, it doesn't say Artemis, it says Diana. And so why is that important? Because we have known through tradition that goddess is the goddess Hekate is the goddess of witchcraft. Now, what does that mean? Because nowadays, once again, one of the reasons why I'm having this introductory disclaimer talk is because the word witchcraft has been manipulated for 2,000 years to mean many various different things. Even if we go back to the Bible, if we read in the New Testament, what is the word for witch? It says pharmaka. Now the word pharmaka basically means pharmacist. It's not witch, it's just pharmacist, pharmaka. But pharmaka had a very loaded term. The Greek language has so much of a loaded context to almost every single word. The word pharmaka also meant usually came from Medea, who we see her in Jason and the Argonauts, the Argonautica. And so Medea is definitely a pharmaka. She's described by many different sources from the Roman times, from the Greek times, to medieval times in Europe as the pharmaka. Now, this was a very, even in the play Medea, I think it was written by Euripides, she's a feared woman, because people don't understand her. And I'm going to be passing around this other one because it's going to come to like the other description, but I was supposed to bring my triangle. And so the Medea is feared because she's not understood, and people feel that let me tell you a story about Medea. And that's why she's so feared. Her husband Jason double crosses her and ends up marrying the daughter of a king. And Medea is quite upset about this. This is according to the play, not according to Jason and the Argonauts. And so Medea decides to make her a dress as a token of peace-giving. Is that how you say it? Peace-giving? As a token of peace-giving, kind of like the Trojan horse. And so the princess says, okay, cool, this Medea is being nice, and now she's going to give me this beautiful dress, so I'm going to put it on. As soon as she puts it on, she goes up in flames. And her father tries to help her to basically put down the flames, and he cannot do that. He goes up in flames as well. And so that is an example of who a pharmaka was to the ancient Greeks. It was a woman who knew the elements of nature better than the usual people, and therefore she could potentially use them for harm. In this case, she killed the princess and she killed the king. And so that loaded word and story develops into witch, the bad witch. And so, but Medea, of course, she's certainly a witch that was infamous in the Bible. Even the Bible had to use the word pharmaca to say, this is a witch, be careful, because she knows plants and she knows minerals, and she can potentially use them to harm us, to harm the community, and to harm everyone. Of course, the king dies, and everyone is going to try to go for his throne, and war ensues, and so therefore instability happens just because this woman would not let go of her husband easily, or just want to incite revenge on her enemy, or her, I don't know, opponent, shall we say it. And so therefore, now that we establish what is the ancient concept of a god from ancient literature to what is the, so we're not done with the witch. In Greek literature, there's more to a witch. She's not only a pharmaca, that's just the biblical description. But the word witch also applies to a theurgist, which that is what I subscribe to. I don't subscribe myself as a witch. I don't subscribe myself as anything else but a theurgist. And as we talk, I will explain why do I consider myself a theurgist. A theurgist is basically a person that devotes himself to a particular god or goddess. Yes, you don't have to belong only to one god or to one goddess. You can belong to multiple ones. And you can subscribe to multiple ones. We all have different types of theurgy to this very day as per the description, per the definition. For example, many Catholics today are theurgists. You know, they make pilgrimages to the Virgin of Guadalupe or San Francisco de Assis. They all dedicate themselves to a particular patron god or goddess, sometimes dependent on their province, to where they're from. And that is actually a Greek tradition. If you're from Ephesus, your patron goddess is Artemis or Diana. If you lived in the Roman times, Artemis is just the Greek term. And so a lot of the Catholic tradition, which is one of the oldest Christian traditions on earth, steals a lot from, or it doesn't steal, it takes a lot from Greek, the pantheos, from the traditions, for the concept of like if you go to a Catholic church and many people leave their little candle on a little offering in front of a saint, that is what the people did in the ancient time. The Greek ancients did to that is to the oracles. So they render sacrifices to the gods. So now they don't give huge sacrifices of, like, say, animals or incense, but now they put a little candle there that you can buy for, like, I don't know, $1. And so now we have the pharmaca, the theurgist, and there are multiple other ones. There's, of course, astrology, certain types of divination, like forms of geomancy. They didn't have tarot back then. Astrology was a little bit different because the astrology that we have today, it was mostly put together, composed, actually kind of has developed mostly by the Frenchy people in the 1800s with Le Belle Époque, people like Stanislas Papus. Then it kind of got developed then it got picked up by the Golden Dawn in England, and the Golden Dawn gave it to us. And some people have included planets. Planets like Neptune, and what are the other ones? Pluto, and some other ones that were not part of the original astrological system. And even the gods are different for the ancient Greeks. They didn't have because it goes back to symbolism. I don't know. Sorry, I'm going into the deep end. I can speak another hour on astrology. But anyway, there are many different types of magic for the Greeks. And so, yes, the goddess Hekate subscribes to all of them. But according to the Greek magical papyri, goddess Hekate also just takes up on so many things. She's called so many different things, not only Selene. She's called Klothos, Atropos, Mene. sometimes even Persephone, which that is another segue as to why she's being called Persephone. But then again, let's go now to the definition of what Hekate is. Why is she the triple goddess? And we already described why is she the goddess of magic, or at least kind of touched on it a little bit. And so the reason why anybody has a guess as to why she is the triple goddess, if she's the moon? How many faces does the moon have? There's one. There's the full moon. Way go. Okay, waxing, gibbons, and crescent. So basically, crescent is like the little horn. That's why she has the little horn. And then she has the gibbons. And that is why she is a triple goddess. Not because of the crown or whatever. It angers me when people say that, because that has there's no application to it. It's like you're trying to make up your own mythology on a real goddess. The real goddess is right up there and is doing something, and if you want to subscribe to what she's doing, just look at it. You don't need to believe in it. You don't need to have anybody else believe in it. It's there, and she has been there for millennia. And so, yes, that is why she's the triple goddess. And so the crescent and the waxing gibbons, those are her faces. And also, this becomes a little bit more, it becomes very beautiful if we understand it from also a seed way, or even from a female way. That is why she's a goddess, because when she's full, she's pregnant. And when she is waxing, it means she has already given birth, and now she's waxing, and then there's new moon. And when the new moon starts to rise up, that is when she starts to become waning. It's basically now she's like, she has been in the Chaldean oracles. It says that the great God, whoever that is, it's never really quite described in the Chaldean oracles, or at least there's parts of it missing. It says the great creator God is the one that impregnates her with life. And so that is why she is also the giver of life and the taker of life. And that is why she also is very much described as having keys. She's having keys. So let me tell you a very personal story. Don't tell anyone, okay? When I was 19 years old, I died. And so for like a minute and a half, I was not able to move. I didn't have a pulse. And so my uncle noticed that there was something wrong with me. And so he kind of helped me out on basically being able to get me back to this world. During that minute and a half that I was gone, which to me, it felt more like weeks. I felt myself as if I was in the middle of a room, kind of like this, and surrounded by people or voices. And there was one particular female voice that approached me, and she said, "What are you doing here?" And I asked her, "I don't know. What am I doing here?" And then she says, well, there were some conversations that are not quite pertinent to this talk, but she told me, "You need to go back. Would you like to go back?" And I told her, "Yes, I would like to go back." Well, that voice was not only one voice. There were three voices that sometimes they even consulted with one another. And so I was brought back. Now, that is the key. She opened the key of the death for me, and she opened that door for me to come back to here. So as the Chaldean oracles also describe that she is the one that brings forward life, and also the one that welcomes it when it's taken, or when there's no longer life anymore. So to me, that is what the keys mean. So everything has a symbol within not only an astronomical object, but also within the movement of the water, the cycles of the earth, and of course our lives. And so there are many different people like Emperor Hadrian or Alexander the Great who are known for having talking about her in these particular allegories. Then that brings me to now the culmination and the end of my disclaimers. Sorry to have made it for so long. How long have I been talking? All right, not that bad, 20 minutes. All right, so now that we have understood all of these wonderful things that our goddess Hekate is, how were they applied? Of course, they were they are applied without us even knowing about them. It's like, for example, when I had that near-death experience, I didn't have any other choice. It's like either you die or you don't. It's not like you believe in death. No, death is there. It's like we will all ultimately have to encounter her at the end of our lives. And sometimes I believe that a lot of the concepts of Christianity, especially the made-up ones, have a lot to do with goddess Hekate and with the goddess Dionysius. That's who I'm wearing. This is my Theos Sabazius, and that's why I'm wearing this ring. He's my patron god as well. Goddess Hekate is kind of like a mom, please love me. So sometimes she is a little hard. Sometimes there are many times where like I'm trying to get too close to her and I'm doing things for her, and it's like, oh my gosh, I'm now having communications with dead people. So it's kind of dangerous sometimes to deal with Hekate. She's not a loving, kind goddess all the time. She is like in the Greek magical papyrus says, she is rough, and her companions are even worse. It's like I think in Jason the Argonauts, when Medea summons Hekate, of course the great magic Medea, the greatest, well not the greatest one, the second greatest magician that has ever lived, or witch that has ever lived, pharmaca that has ever lived. Hekate is about to destroy Jason because of her entourage. And Medea basically asks Hekate, is like, please have kindness on us. And in fact, that's what the song actually says. In Greek it says, alothi moi kale ontikai en moioneos aisia kaneoson. Please be kind to us. Because she's rough. Even death is rough. And if that is her archetype, that is what she represents. That is why she's a goddess, and that is her archetype. That is one of the things that are Hekate. And so Jesus, for example, is supposed to be the intermediary between people, between life and death, and he's supposed to be kind of like the lawyer. Goddess Hekate, predates Jesus, at least in the literary sources, by 500 years, 500 before Christ. And according to some narratives, at least 1,000 years before Christ. And so a lot of the aspects of Christianity seem to be taken from goddess Hekate and from Dionysius. And now that we have cleared all this up, is it okay if I sing you guys a song? Where do I put this? Is there a mic stand? I'll put it there. Okay. Oh yeah, before I sing it though, I would like to tell you why I'm singing it. Every morning, she wakes me up, either like around 4 or 5 a.m., and I have to sing to her. If I don't sing to her, I cannot go back to sleep. And so, but then sometimes when I sing to her on particular times, things can get a little scary. So goddess Hekate is not the type of goddess that you just want to like have in your wall, kind of like worship and, do your little cross. Sorry if I bring Christ so much. It's just because, that is the most usable archetype, because it has been used for almost 2,000 years. And so goddess Hekate does things to you. And so if you let her, especially if you get to know her intimately when you die. And so, but sometimes when I sing this to her at the moon and I do my meditation, I see things, and the things are awesome. I have seen many wonderful things. She has done many miracles in my life, but then she's also rough. But it's kind of like a mom. It's kind of like sometimes she has to tell you, do not do stupid things, do nice things, because there are going to be the Edenias at the end of the road once you die, and the Edenias will be the ones that will tell you, okay, you were kind to these people, we will let you pass through, and if you haven't, there will be heck to pay. And so I'm going to sing it to you as a way for me to show you what is my practice within the world of Hekate. Is that okay with you? Do you want me to read this? I usually do it in Greek, but do you want me to say it in English or do you care? In English? Actually, how about if I translate it first in English, and then I'll sing it in Greek, because I have never actually quite sang it in English. All right, this is what it says. And this is the translation from the Greek Magical Papyri. The translation to me is a little bit off, because like I said, the Greek is so loaded with so many innuendos and poetical things. Like, for example, there's a word that it says that it says epoquason. But to me, it's translated as kind or good willing. Like corazon is basically heart. So equason basically means like the one with the good heart. So you're describing her as having a good heart, as being kind. And so obviously whoever wrote this particular prayer, it's actually a spell. But I unplug some of the spell out and use it as a prayer, because I think it's so beautiful and wonderful. And so just bear with me with the translation. The translation says, come to me, O beloved mistress, three-faced moon, and with goodwill heed my sacred song, image, glory of night, youthful shining upon mortals, child of morning. You who sits upon fierce bulls, O queen, therefore they call you Hekate, many named Mene. You who cuts the air like arrow-pouring Artemis, who rides a chariot on equal course with the sun. So you have Helios, the sun, and then you have Selene, the moon. So that's what that means. You who dance in three forms of three graces, revealing with the stars of justice and the threads of faith. Clothos and Lachesis and Atropos, you are the three-headed one. Persephone and Megaria and Alecto and many-formed one. You who equip your hands with threaded torches, you who look after the vast cosmos of night, you at whom diamonds doesn't mean demon, it means kind of like spirits. You who at whom diamonds shudder and immortals tremble, O renowned goddess, many-formed with beautiful offspring, be gracious unto me as I call and listen sympathetically. Now that we got that out of the way, let me see if I can sing it. Just put it down, it's fine. No, you guys look kind of bored, but if you want to clap, that would be awesome. Moi kale onti kai e mo neo e koason Hekate. Now this particular chant is a little longer, but once you are a little out of it, because it's quite in the morning and you're doing something else, you get to see cool things. The reason why I sing it in Greek, as opposed to any other language, is because this particular incantation does things. I sang it for a few years in Spanish, and yeah, it was cool, got you in the mood. But when I started to sing it in Greek and I started to sing it to the moon, things started to happen. And so that is my testament of how the magic of Hekate works. Many people, for example, I'm not criticizing anybody, whatever works for you. But a lot of the magic that we have today is based on faith. And that concept of faith, to me, is a little bit off. Because once again, we have had 2,000 years of indoctrination, and the concept of faith is very much different from the pistis. The pistis is the word for faith in Greek, but it's more of a conjunction between what you believe and what you know is going to happen. For example, if you plant a seed, you have faith that there will be a plant that will grow. And so that has two compounding levels of faith. One, you know that that particular seed has the potential to grow life. And the other one is you have faith that that seed or your competence to grow that seed within the earth will grow. Now, when sometimes we do modern magic, and I tell you because I spend, well, I still practice the Golden Dawn system of magic, which also is not magic. It's just like my teacher was Chris Monestra, who was the student / main piece. I don't know what you call it. They were never married. It was the main piece of Israel Rigardi, to whom now we have the books of the Golden Dawn. Thanks to whom we have the books of the Golden Dawn. And so even she admitted, and Israel Rigardi admitted, that the system of the Golden Dawn, and therefore tarot and many other systems of magic that we enjoy today, are not necessarily magic. They are part of the theurgical system. And so the Golden Dawn is a practice that trains you for about 2.5, 3 years to enter into a chamber. And in that chamber, you're supposed to see things and talk to things, and those are your gods. And so not your God, like ultimate God, but like the God that guides you. The ones that have always been there for you. The one that you're about to cross the street and you're about to get hit, and there's a voice in your head that says, stop, do not cross the street right now. And you stop and you don't get hit by the car. That is your God, which is basically a daemons. Not a demon, but a spirit. Everybody has their spirit guides. When somebody double crosses you, sometimes bad things happen to that other person. The reason why bad things happen to that other person is because the spirits start battling each other and says like, that was unjust. Why did you do that? And so therefore that person has to pay. Or good things happen to you if you follow your spirits. But unfortunately nowadays, we are not that very apt to listening to them. We are just blindly following the faith. Now, faith can be pretty pointless. For example, like I said, to each their own, but to me, crystals, if you don't know what they mean and you don't know how to consecrate them, they're not very helpful. I like that thing that it says, like that came out during COVID. It's like, why does COVID happen to all of us with all these ladies with crystals on them? It's like, it's like, okay. It's like, I guess it didn't work as well as they hoped. Or maybe we're not doing it properly. I don't know. But there are crystals in the Greek magical papyri, and they act in a particular way. In fact, this bracelet is lapis lazuli, and it's consecrated in a particular way. So I do follow crystal magic, but crystal magic goes by the Greek magical papyri, not by Wicca, which also came from the Golden Dawn, but Wicca doesn't have a lot of basis for a lot of things because the people that created it were not really quite initiates of the Golden Dawn. Not that the Golden Dawn is a great system anyway. It has a lot of faults. It has a lot of flaws. It's more of a training ground for you to understand what the heck you're doing. And then once you understand what the heck you're doing, then you can start to transform it and use it in multiple ways. That is why I'm able to understand the Greek magical papyri, thanks to the Golden Dawn, not to also bash it, because the Golden Dawn trained me for me to be able to understand, that's what they're talking about. Also, the Greek magical papyri is super ambiguous. There are many people, even scholars, PhDs, who have tried to understand what the heck is the Greek magical papyri saying. Why is it using those words? But we know that those people used them. The Greco-Romans used them, and there are many stories that it worked. For example, there's like a guy who is supposed to be the Roman emperor, and he gets bewitched, pharmakat, or goitia, by a particular witch, and he ends up dying, and he is no longer the emperor, and another emperor takes his place. And so there are a lot of examples in the Greco-Roman world where magic has actually worked. And then you're going to say, well, why did Christianity win instead of the pagans? Well, because the pagans became Christians. And they became part of their world. One of the clear examples, for example, is Nonus. And so instead of like the witches trying to antagonize the government and the Pretoria and the empire, he said, it's like, you know what, cool, we just adapt our gods because our gods have many names anyway. And so we just adapt into whatever the heck you want to adapt into. It's like, for example, in Ephesus, the temple of Artemis was destroyed and burned by a particular, I think it was an emperor. And so then there was a nun that started having visions of the Virgin Mary. And so she said the particular spirit, I'm thinking is Artemis or a form of Artemis or Diana, showed her, this is where I need you to put my church. And so this particular nun was quite adamant that she wanted to put a chapel to the Virgin Mary right next to what used to be the Temple of Artemis. Even though at that time, everybody had forgotten that that was the Temple of Artemis. And so the gods talk to us all the time because they're part of nature. And even though we cannot see them or hear them often with our regular eyes, they're there. The spirits that guide us, they're there. And so we just have to learn how to listen to them and how to love them and how to allow ourselves to be loved by them. And so that to me is way more beautiful than having a symbol on a wall or any other form to try to tell us how to worship nature or how to worship ourselves. Oh, well, I guess we did kind of fast. Anybody have any questions? Questions? Come on, bring it. Yes, ma'am.
So, Hekate's, I've heard Hekate being associated as a death goddess. Do you feel like that's a limiting term? That that's just one facet of her? Or is that more of like kind of the white version of her? Like, how does death, like, do you feel that she is like the deity of death? Or how do you view Hekate in the lens of death?
Well, death is multifaceted. It has many different aspects. For example, Persephone is the goddess of death. That's her literal title, the bringer of death. And of course, we have Hades. And then we have the entourage of many death, I wouldn't call them gods, but spirits, aspects. You have what do you call it? The ferryman. Is that right? It's the Charon. The ferryman, you have the Erinis, you have the multiple archons. So I think Hekate is the goddess of death in the aspect that she allows you to enter the world of the death. But she's not the goddess of death. Of course, that goddess of death, per definition by the literature, it's Persephone. She is Hades' queen. And I can go into the story of the why, what does that even mean? Because to me, the story of Hades and Persephone, it is not a story of a dude being horny and trying to hook up with a young girl. It's not. It's a story about fall, winter, death, being forgotten, destroying life, bringing back forward life, God being sorry for what he did. Zeus is God. God being sorry for what he did, and then allowing the cycles of life and death to basically move forward. That is the story of Persephone and Demeter and Hekate to me, because it means something. It's alive. We can see it every year. Does that answer your question? But I can go a little bit into like Hekate having a conversation with Demeter, which is an interesting one, because I thought you said death. You said death or death? As in, oh yeah. For example, when, I don't know, you guys know the story of Persephone? More or less. Okay, I don't know if I say it or how much time we got. Yeah, this would be a beautiful way to try to explain also goddess Hekate in the afterworld. The PG version of this is Hades, who is god of the death, wants the queen. And Demeter is the goddess of harvest, of measurement, of exactness, of bringing forward life, has a daughter. His name is Persephone. Persephone is not just a name. Persephone means the bringer of death. And so to me, Persephone, it is not just a beautiful maiden, Kore, but it's fall. So the reason why Demeter puts her in a garden is because she's going to kill everything. It's fall. And so Hades, I'm assuming, since he's the god of death, he has a thing for her. He's like, oh man, she kills everything. I want to marry her. And so Hades, Hades, just basically means forgotten, unknown. In fact, in the Titanomachy, he doesn't fight with the gods. He's chilling. He doesn't fight. Why? Because he is not quite known. Once again, he's not a really god. He's a symbol. When people die, they become forgotten. And so that is the definition of Hades. He's just like being forgotten. And so Hades, the archetype of forgetfulness or being of oblivion or being forgotten, ends up kidnapping her Persephone. Demeter is really mad, and so she goes looking for her, and she stops doing her job, and so things start to die. Why do they die? Because she's the bringer of death. It's like she is the bringer of death. She's fall, shall we say? And so Demeter goes into Tartarus. Also, doesn't quite. Tartarus has been translated as hell. Tartarus is not hell. Tartarus is more kind of like I don't know. It's many different things. I'm not going into that. There's a root word, and there are many different aspects to Tartarus. But we all go to Tartarus. There's no heaven. There's no hell. There's just Tartarus. But based on what we have done in life, we have different fates in Tartarus, because Tartarus is a big, gigantic, gloomy place at first, and then there's like lakes, forgotten lakes, and then there's Socrates describes it as islands of paradise. Yes, Socrates talks about Tartarus a lot. I think it's the Timaeus. And so, going back to Hekate, I'm sorry, digress. And so, Demeter, okay, we're not talking about Neptune. That's a little graphic. So, Demeter goes through a lot in Tartarus. She's kind of all alone, and she's very vulnerable. And Neptune he does take advantage of her. And so Hekate feels bad for Demeter, and she's deaf, or she appears to be deaf. She doesn't talk to her. She doesn't talk to Demeter, but she basically lets her know where is her daughter. And also along this whole story is also the goddess Hermes. The goddess Hermes is the god of knowledge, of wisdom, and also of being intermediary between the world of alive and death. Is the bringer of messages. That's why Mercury, for example, we have as also Hermes. Mercury and Hermes are basically equated, and he kind of swings back and forward between the sun and kind of like his orbit. And so Hekate is the one that tells Demeter, this is where your daughter is. After whole ordeal with the pomegranate, Persephone is allowed to go back into the world. But she ate some of the pomegranate seeds, and so she has to go back. Now, that's a pretty story, but she's fall, and Demeter, spring, parts of summer, brings her back. And now life comes into being. Persephone stops killing things, and now life comes back. The gods can be worshipped again. And then the goddess Hekate, being the moon, she is the one that guided Demeter through the darkness. That is why sometimes it's called the Lucifera, or Christians have to call her Lucifer. Lucifer is not the devil. Luz means light. Fera means kind of like the action, the movement. And so Lucifera basically means the movement of light, the bringer of light. And so she was the one that guided Demeter through the darkness and showed her, this is where your daughter is. And of course, darkness can also be an archetype for oblivion, for being forgotten, for not knowing where you're going. And so that whole story of Persephone, every single god is an aspect of nature. It is not just a paganus or a primitive story. It's a story that we see its drama play every day of our lives. It's like when we see the beautiful sun and we feel warm, we feel happy. Sometimes when it's gloomy and it's dark and it's rainy or it's snowing, sometimes we get sad. we feel it. We feel of the gods. You may not want to call them gods. You may want to call them seasons, or you may call them whatever the heck you want to call them. But the ancient Greeks called them gods. But of course, there are spirits behind the spring, behind fall. And the ancient Greeks decided to call them gods. And so sometimes we're able to perceive them as those particular aspects of nature, and that's how we're able to interpret them. Or you can say, oh yeah, the sun, the axis of the earth moves away, and it's cold now, and the axis of the earth moves back again, and it's hot now. If you want to see it that way, that's cool. But to me, it's more beautiful to see it's like, oh, cool, here comes Helios. It's like the arrows of Apollo are coming through the mountains. It's like, oh, that's a pretty cool thing to visualize. It's poetic, it's beautiful. As opposed to like, oh my gosh, is it going to be hot today? It's like, or if it's cold, it's like, oh my gosh, it's going to be miserable. It's like, no, you could put it in a more poetic way and say, it's like, oh my gosh, that Hades is bringing his cold again, killing the plants. And so the ancient Greek mythology is filled with poetic ways for us to be able to understand nature and to understand life and to understand ourselves. Sorry to make that very long. Any other questions, comments, concerns? You want to refute me? Any white goddess ladies here that want to tell me, you are wrong. You are a jerk. Only women can be. Oh yeah, here's another thing that I can talk about. Hekate. There was a white goddess lady that told me men cannot worship Hekate. I was like, what? It's like, well, do you know that men were they were the administrators of the temple of Lagina, of the main temple of Hekate? Oh yeah, but they were eunuchs. And it's like, well, there's a reason why they were eunuchs, and it was not a sexual thing. It's like, no, it meant that they wanted to be female. No. It's like eunuchs, now we understand that they have really cool antibodies. And so I'm not going to get too graphic on this, but have you ever seen you know what the caduceus is? The caduceus, the symbol of doctors. It's like a big rod with a sun, and it has two snakes crawling up around the pole. Now, that symbol did not become the symbol of medicine by accident. Back in the day, pharmaca, witches, they used snake poisons to cure many different things. My mom's kind of witchy. I mean, she was witchy all her life. When I was a little kid, I poured oil all over this arm. Like there was a big pot, and I poured the oil, and it sprinkled all over my arm. And so my mom, being the pharmaca that she is, and this was Mexico, she got honey venom, what is that called? Bees venom. And bees venom and snake poison, which you're able to, there's a place in Mexico where you can get this. And so she got the honeybee and the wax, the poison and the venom, and she rubbed it in my arm 3 times a day. And do you see any third-degree burn scars on my arm? Snake poison was used by many people for many different years as a form of medicine, or pharmaca, witchcraft, whatever you want to call it, And so there are many political reasons why pharmaca is not good for certain institutions, because you want to be saved by faith and the church. You don't want to be saved by actual science. That is why Galilei was like, you put the sun in the center of the system. No, it's Jesus the center. It's like, what? It's like, Jesus is the center. But that's not what the math says, bro. It's like the math says the sun is the center. Well, yeah, but that'll be bad for business because we need to be the center. People need to pay us money. And if certain people heal people, then they have performed a miracle. And that is bad for business. The church is supposed to perform the miracle. And so, because it's good for business. And so, that's why pharmacas are not ones that are dangerous, because they do things to people that they don't want to do. And there's no institution that can really quite control that. It's difficult to control the consumption of a particular chemical or a particular substance on people, especially safely. But what I was talking about snakes. Help me out here. Why was I talking about snakes? Oh, the eunuchs. Thank you very much. Yes, eunuchs have cool antibodies. And so for you to heal yourself, to have the antidote to that poison of the snake, you need to build up the antibodies for the snake poison. And that is why they were eunuchs, because they were able to develop the antibodies to create the antidote for the dote. So yes, a snake can cure certain things, but if taken in certain ways to cure certain things, it will kill the person. And so the antidote needs to be taken before the snake is provided. And so that's where the eunuchs come in. I think today, for example, now if you get bitten, or if I get bitten by a snake, I think the antidotes come from like a horse or something, which also gets trained, by somebody to create those antibodies to be able to, for us to be able to recuperate from the snake poison, from the snake bite. And that is the story of me fighting with the white goddess ladies as to why I cannot worship the goddess Hekate. So yeah, I'm sorry, I'm not a eunuch either. Not into that. Any other questions? Do we still have time? 9 minutes? We got 9 minutes, people. Come on, bring something. What do you got? Questions? Concerns? Bring it. Let's talk about goddess Hekate. What? When I had my near-death experience, I had no idea who she was. And in fact, at that time, I was heavy into Kabbalah because of the Golden Dawn. But my journey through Kabbalah was weird because I'm a scientist by profession, and so I need to know, I need to have a prove it to me mentality. I'm not going to believe something just because you tell me to. It's like you need to prove it to me. And so therefore, I started with the Hermetic Kabbalah of the Golden Dawn, and I realized that there were a lot of problems with it. These didn't make sense. It was not very applicable. The translation didn't really quite make that much sense. Oh yeah, I had to go and study a little bit of Hebrew for me to like understand what the heck was talking about. So I read the Sefer Yetzirah, other books of the Zohar, and so I was heavy into Kabbalah, particularly because I'm also part Sephardic Jew. I'm also partly Sephardic Jew. And so I wanted to understand it from the perspective of my people, because the people where I'm from is where a lot of the Kabbalah got developed, which is the area of Girona, which is also, coincidentally, an ancient Greek colony. There's an ancient Greek colony just north of Girona in Spain. And so that's where my patriarchal lineage comes from. So I wanted to understand that because I wanted to get in touch with that. And also it was part of my journey. It was like once you start, maybe the phrase is thinking you talk to spirits, they start telling you things. And if you think sometimes that you're speaking, they always, 99% of the time, they will prove you right. This is like, oh, look, okay, you're saying that? Okay, let me go research that, because you're just a voice in my head. It's like, and sure enough, like, oh crap, it's right there, it is. That's exactly what he was named. Oh, there's a book. Oh, okay, cool, let's read it. And so even though the spirits sometimes they don't talk to us like I'm talking to you right now, the spirits guide you to books or guide you to people that show you different things. And then if you go far back enough, you realize that things get even more and more and more beautiful because they were distorted for a lapse of 2,000 years. Distorted, and they had to be interpreted in a safe way for 2,000 years. But fortunately, we have wonderful scholars who can translate it for us. It's hard to translate this book. In fact, it took many PhDs to translate this book because it was not only in Greek, it was in Coptic, it was in other types of like dialects, which are kind of like Greek, but not really. And so these wonderful scholars were able to translate it to us, and now we're able to know the gods from the perspective of our ancestors 2,000 years ago, which we did not have. We did not have that luxury for almost 2,000 years. All of those books were either burned or forgotten or destroyed, but fortunately some of these little pieces of parchment found themselves inside of jars, and people found the jars, and they were able to unroll the scrolls and translate them for us to be able to rebuild, or at least rebuild my culture, reveal my ancestors. And so that's why I love to recite my prayers in Greek, because that's very likely, if that's where my patriarchal lineage my patriarchal lineage comes from. The chances are, and if the spirits don't lie to me, that's what my ancestors spoke. That was the language of my ancestors. And so, to me, it's not only I love Goddess Hekate because she's cool, it's also a way to connect for me to my ancestors based on my spirit guides who have guided me all my life, who have always been kind to me, saved my life, saved the life of my relatives, have given me so much wisdom. Every night I see beautiful, wonderful things about them. I cannot even I cannot speak highly of them, and I get teary-eyed about them. But yeah, that's my spiel. Yeah. That's not my area of expertise. I'm more of a Mediterranean type of person. Look at my skin. Druids are like Irish, right, or Celts. I think they're Irish or Celts. I think there's a book by John Michael Greer who says Celtish Golden Dawn or something. I heard that is a wonderful book about Druidism, because the Golden Dawn, the system itself is very Egyptian, and then the inner order part after the Golden Dawn, it starts to become more Christian, because the guy, well, the writings from who we get it from was like some kind of Episcopalian or some kind of Protestant priest, but he was also practicing magic or theurgy, and so he transformed the inner order grace very Christian. Originally it was very Egyptian because of MacGregor Mathers, but John Michael Greer transformed it into a Celtish system, and I think which is a very Druid system. But that's what you go around these circles, you know things. Yes, but everybody has had a belief system throughout. Yeah. But some of them are more sophisticated than others, in my opinion. For example, Greek, just the language of the Greek language is just so gorgeous, so absolutely gorgeous and eloquent. I read Socrates, I read Aristotle, I read Iamblichus. I am like, what the freak did you just say, bro? it's like, what? Can someone please explain this to me? And then I go to the Greek, and I try to read it in Greek, and I'm thinking, yeah, I kind of get a little bit more, but I still don't understand what you're saying. Because even though I speak fairly good Latin, I speak Spanish, Portuguese, French, English, there's no comparison to Greek. Greek is just so loaded with so much power. There are so many innuendos to the word usage, to the changes, to the declensions. It's like, oh my gosh. And so that is why at the present, I've subscribed more to understand my theology from a Greek perspective, because I think I have evolved from a Jewish, Christian, back to Jewish, many different things in between, to, oh my gosh, the Greeks knew everything. They are so wise, and they're able to explain things in such wonderful, powerful ways. But I don't know that much about the Druids, so I cannot define them or compare them. I can compare Christianity to either many different types of Judaism or to the ancient Greeks, but I don't know enough about Druidism that... oh yeah, there's a YouTuber guy, you will love him. His name is Old Boy, AULD Boy. He is really good at explaining all of that stuff, and sometimes he compares, because there was a a migration, I believe, of Antioch, people from Antioch, which is now kind of southern Turkey, no, somewhere in Turkey, which are also kind of, they were, at that time, they were Greeks. They were highly influenced by the Greeks. And so they migrated into Great Britain. I don't know how, but they also influence religion, according to this guy, Old Boy. And he shows, according to him, I haven't quite checked the sources, but according to him, he has sources to back that up. So it seems that Druidism does borrow from the Greek pantheon, but they're different names. But I don't know enough for me to know. It looks like my time's up. Thank you so much for your attention. You guys are awesome. Thank you.